Let's continue with problem number 4 from the worksheet titled Solving Linear Equations Using the Elimination Method. When we look at the fourth problem, you're going to see that we're going to need to rewrite that first equation so that it matches what the second equation looks like in terms of the like terms being arranged in columns. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to take and let's move our 2x and move it over to the left-hand side. And so we would have, if we add 2x to both sides, we would have 2x plus 5y equals 12. And then we will rewrite our 4x minus 5y equals a negative 6 on the bottom. You'll see that we have a positive 5y and a negative 5y, so we're going to add the equations. 2x plus 4x gives us 6x. Positive 5y and a negative 5y gives us 0, so we can just leave that. And 12 plus a negative 6 gives us a positive 6. So we'll divide each side by 6, and we see that x equals 1 in our problem number 4. So now let's take that 1 value for x and let's substitute that into the second equation. And we'll take 4 times 1 minus 5y gives us a negative 6. And 4 times 1 is 4 minus 5y. Let's simplify and solve for y here. Let's subtract 4 from each side, and you'll see that we end up with a negative 5y. We've got to make sure that we keep that negative sign with the 5y, and that equals negative 10. Now we'll eliminate that negative 5 by dividing both sides by a negative 5, and you'll see then that y equals 2. So problem number 4, x equals 1 and y equals 2. Let's move on. Let's take a look at problem number 5. And in problem number 5, our first equation is 4x plus y equals 1, and x plus y equals 4. Now in this example, you're going to see that we have a plus x and a plus x in both equations. When this happens, then you want to subtract the terms, is what you want to do. So y minus y gives us 0. And so it'll work this way too. So here we're going to subtract, and 4x minus x gives us 3x. Y minus y is nothing. We can leave that alone. And 1 minus 4 gives us a negative 3. Divide each side by 3, and you'll see that x equals a negative 1. Let's take that value of negative 1 and let's substitute that into our second equation, which is x plus y equals 4. So that will give us negative 1 plus y equals 4. Add 1 to both sides, and y equals 5. So the answer to number 5 is x equals negative 1, and y equals y equals a positive 5. We're going to look at one more problem similar to number 5, where you will see that both equations have a positive y. Our first one is 3x plus y equals 9. Our second equation is negative 2x plus y equals 4. Now because we have our plus y and plus y, we want to subtract our equations, and you'll see that when we do that, we are subtracting, with our x's, we are subtracting a negative 2x. So if you recall, that's actually adding them, and that would make a plus 2x. So 3x minus a negative 2x gives us 5x. Hopefully that makes sense. Negative minus something actually means that you're adding that. And then our y's cancel out, and 9 minus 4 gives us 5. Divide each side by 5, and x equals 1. Let's take that value of 1 for x, and let's substitute that into our first equation. 3x plus y equals 9. So we have 3 times 1 plus y equals 9. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 plus y equals 9. Subtract our 3 from each side, and y equals 6. So the answer to number 6, x equals 1 and y equals 6. In summary for number 6, you want to pay special attention when you are subtracting a negative term to make sure that when you do that, you're doing that properly so that you get the right answer. Let's take a look at problem number 7 from the worksheet titled Solving Linear Equations Through Elimination Method. And again, when we take a look at our two equations, we see that in our second equation, we need to rewrite that so that it lines up with our first equation. So let's go ahead and duplicate our first equation, which is 2.7x plus 1.5y equals 36. We want to look at our second equation, and we want to bring that 2.7x over to the left-hand side. So when we do that, we're going to end up with a negative 2.7x, and then that'll be plus 3.5y, and that equals a negative 6. Now our x's are lined up, our y's are lined up, and our whole number 36 and the negative 6 are lined up. And we see that we have a positive 2.7x and a negative 2.7x. And because we have that, we can go ahead and add those equations. Our x's will cancel out. And when we add our 1.5y and our 3.5y, that gives us 5y. And 36 plus a negative 6 results in a positive 30. So 5y equals 30. We will now divide each side by 5, and we see that y equals 6. Let's go ahead and substitute that 6 in for y, and let's use our first equation. Okay, and you're going to want to have your calculator handy for this. So we have 2.7x plus 1.5 times 6 equals 36. So we've got 2.7x plus, and if we take 1.5 times 6, we get 9. And that equals 36. Subtract 9 from each side, and 36 minus 9 gives us 27. So we have 2.7x equals 27. Divide both sides by 2.7. And 27 divided by 2.7 equals 10. So x equals 10. So the answers for number 7 is that y equals 6 and x equals 10. We have one last problem on this worksheet, and that's number 8. And let's take a look at our last problem, number 8. Our two equations, we have 1.3x minus 3y equals a negative 17.6. And our second equation is 25.1 equals negative 1.3x plus 4.5y. And in this problem, you're going to see that we are going to have to take a look at that second equation and rewrite it so that it matches and lines up with our first equation. So let's go ahead and rewrite our first equation. And we have 1.3x minus 3y equals negative 17.6. In our second equation, we're simply going to flip-flop from one equal sign to the other. So we can just flip-flop what's on the, the right. We're going to move over to the left. And so that will give us a negative 1.3x plus 4.5y, and that's going to equal 25.1. Again, we see that we have a positive 1.3x and a negative 1.3x, and because of that, we can simply add our terms in these two equations. Our x's cancel out, and when we take a negative 3y and a positive 4.5y and add those together, the result is 1.5y. And negative 17.6 plus a positive 25.1 gives us 7.5. If you divide each side by 1.5, and you'll want to use your calculators if you have them handy, you'll see that y equals 5. So now we can take that 5 and let's substitute it into the first equation, and we can solve for x. So we're going to take 1.3x minus 3 times y, or 3 times 5, and that will give us negative 17.6. Let's continue this. 1.3x minus 15 equals negative 17.6. Add a positive 15 to both sides, and you'll see that 1.3x equals a negative 2.6. When you divide both sides by 1.3, a positive 1.3, you'll see that x equals a negative 2. So the answer for number 8 on this worksheet is y equals 5 and x equals negative 2. Let's take a look at the first problem of the worksheet titled Solving Linear Equations Using the Elimination Method. And you'll see that we have our two equations, and we have lined them up so that all of the like terms are grouped together and they are in columns. So you'll see that we have our whole numbers together here. Our answers are 28. I'm just going to draw a line through there. We have our y's, and then we have our x's. Now in this particular example, because of how they're lined up, we have a plus y and a minus y. So what we want to do is we want to add these equations. And essentially we're going to cancel out our y's so that we can solve for x. 6x minus, or actually 6x plus 2x gives us 8x. And our plus y minus y gives us 0, so we don't need to write that down. But we'll add our 28s, and that gives us 56. So 8x equals 56. Let's divide each side by 8. And 56 divided by 8 is 7. So x equals 7. So now that we've figured out and we know what x is, we want to go back and we want to solve for y. So we can take that value of x and substitute it into either one of those equations. Let's go ahead and put it into the first equation. So we have 6 rather than x, it's 7. So 6 times 7 plus y equals 28. And 6 times 7 is 42. So we have 42 plus y equals 28. Let's subtract 42 from each side. And 28 minus 42 gives us a negative 14. So y equals a negative 14. So in our first problem, we see that x equals 7 and y equals a negative 14. Let's take a look at our second problem from our worksheet. Our first equation is 5x minus 7y equals 95. And our second one, we have 3x plus 7y equals 1. Now you'll see right here we've got a minus 7y and a plus 7y. So those will cancel out and we will add the other term. So essentially what we're doing in this problem, just like we did with number 1, is we're adding those. 5x plus 3x gives us 8x. Negative 7y and a positive 7y cancel each other out. And 95 plus 1 equals 96. Divide each side by 8. And x, grab our calculator here. 96 divided by 8 gives us 12, and so we see that x equals 12. So we've solved for 12. Now we can substitute the value of 12 in and solve for y. Again, it doesn't matter which equation we use. Let's go ahead and let's use the second one this time. So we have 3 times 12 plus 7 times y equals 1. 3 times 12, well, that's 36. So we have 36 plus 7y equals 1. Subtract our 36 from both sides. And we see that 7y equals a negative 35. Divide both sides by 7. And y equals a negative 5. So in our second equation, x equals 12 and y equals a negative 5. If you wanted to take this one step further and substitute both those values in and check your solutions, you could, but we're not going to at this point. Let's take a look at problem number 3 on our worksheet. Problem number 3, we have 5x plus 6y equals negative 8, and we have a negative 5x minus 2y equals a negative 4. So here, again, you'll see that we have a positive 5x and a negative 5x. So we're going to add these equations here, and our 5x's cancel out, and we have 6y plus a negative 2y, which gives us a positive 4y.